We grow up believing that money is supposed to be loud. A new car every few years, visible brands, big renovations, public proof that you've made it, a kind of wealth that only feels real if other people can see it. But if you pay close attention to families who've held wealth for decades, sometimes centuries, something unexpected appears. They're often strangely frugal in ways that confuse almost everyone around them. Not struggling, not deprived, just deliberate. And here's the part most people get wrong. They're not doing it to save money. They're doing it because, in their value system, trying to prove you have money is considered slightly humiliating. Let's break down 8 habits that look cheap on the surface, but are actually some of the strongest status signals there are. Number 1, they keep the same car for an uncomfortably long time. Not a collectible, not retro, not cool again, just old. It's paid off. It works. The paint has that sun-faded look that says, this lives outside and I'm fine with that. And there is zero urgency to replace it. To someone who sees cars as identity statements, this makes no sense. They could easily afford something newer, something nicer, something impressive. But that's the point. They're not using their car to say anything at all. The idea of financing a depreciating object just to impress people you'll never meet feels tasteless to them. Here's how you know it's not stinginess. They're not cutting quality everywhere else. Their home is comfortable and intentional. Their clothes are tailored and well made. They'll spend freely on experiences, travel, food, culture, without hesitation. The car is just a tool, and tools don't need applause. Number 2, they repair instead of replace. When something breaks or wears down, they don't toss it out automatically. They fix it. Watches get serviced, shoes get resoled, furniture gets reupholstered, sometimes again and again. That dining chair, it belonged to a grandparent. They'd rather burn a credit card than replace it with something mass-produced and disposable. This isn't just nostalgia. It's philosophy. Anyone with money can replace something. Very few people have the continuity to maintain objects across decades. In their world, quality is meant to outlast people. Replacing things is easy. Preserving them takes discipline. Number 3, they reuse gift bags, ribbons, and wrapping. Unapologetically, they have a drawer or a cabinet, or, if we're being honest, a whole section of the basement dedicated to gift bags collected over the years. A single bag might attend 3 birthdays and a baby shower before it retires. And when someone notices, there's no awkward explanation, no embarrassment, because this has nothing to do with the price of a gift bag. They know exactly what it costs. The issue is waste, buying something once, using it once, and throwing it away feels wrong to them, not financially, morally. Wastefulness carries more social weight in their world than repetition ever could. They don't save flimsy packaging. They keep the good stuff, thick paper, rope handles, solid construction. Quality packaging is still quality, and throwing away quality is unacceptable. Number 4, they eat leftovers for days without the slightest embarrassment. Sunday dinner becomes Monday lunch. By Wednesday, it's soup. Cold chicken becomes a sandwich. Bones become stock. Stale bread turns into croutons. They don't see leftovers. They see raw material. This isn't scraping by, it's competence. Wasting food, especially food that was prepared with care, is unthinkable to them, not because of the cost, because it's disrespectful to the effort, to the process, to the ingredients. Meanwhile, someone else orders takeout repeatedly and throws half of it away. Here's the distinction. People miss, they're not eating leftovers because they need to. They're eating them because they cook. And people who know how to cook don't waste food. This mindset doesn't come from scarcity. It comes from knowing better. Number 5, they won't pay for convenience. They're perfectly capable of providing themselves. They mow their own lawns, walk their own dogs, clean their own gutters on a Saturday afternoon. Hiring someone for every small task feels excessive, not financially, but personally. This isn't about saving money. It's about competence. They value being useful, self-sufficient, capable, outsourcing. Everything creates a quiet dependency. They're not interested in developing. They'll happily pay skilled professionals for skilled work, roof repairs, restoration, specialized labor. But raking leaves? That's just part of being an adult. Number 6, they host instead of going out. New money loves visibility, the right restaurant, the best table, the public moment when the bill arrives. Old money PR. Ephor's home, on paper, hosting looks cheaper. and technically it is, but that's not why they do it. When you host, you control the environment, the guest list, the pace, the mood. You're not renting a table for 2 hours, you own the space. The choice to stay in isn't frugal, it's confident. It doesn't require an audience to feel important. Number 7, they buy generic, selectively, store brand foil, paper towels, trash bags, anything where branding adds nothing but ink, but they'll spend generously on olive oil, butter, ingredients that actually affect results. To outsiders, this looks inconsistent, cheap in one aisle, lavish in the next. It isn't random, it's discernment. They know exactly where quality matters and where it doesn't. Aluminum is aluminum, but flavor matters. They're not loyal to brands, they're loyal to outcomes. Number 8, they tip generously and argue over small mistakes. They'll leave a substantial tip without hesitation. But if a grocery receipt is wrong by $2, they'll go back and fix it. This confuses people. How can someone give away $40 at dinner and still contest a $2 error? Because it was never about the money. They tip well because service matters, people matter, effort deserves recognition, but errors get corrected, accuracy matters, standards matter. Letting mistakes slide feels like lowering expectations, and they don't do that. This is the signal most people miss. They aren't cheap, they're exact. And precision, when applied to money, often gets mistaken for frugality. The world assumes restraint means lack. Sometimes it means control. The real luxury isn't spending loudly. It's not needing to prove anything at all. So if you've ever seen someone labeled cheap while living a life most people couldn't afford to imitate, now you understand why. Now I'm curious, what's the cheapest thing someone can do that's actually a power move? Drop it in the comments. And if this resonated, hit like, subscribe, and check the storefront for things that genuinely earn their price. As always, stay classy. Part 2 begins where most people get uncomfortable. Because once you notice these habits, you start realizing how deeply modern culture has confused spending with worth. The real difference between inherited wealth and performative wealth isn't income, it's orientation. One group asks, how does this look? The other asks, does this last? And that single question changes everything. People assume old money is quiet because it's polite. It's not. It's quiet because it has nothing to explain. When your financial identity isn't fragile, you don't need reinforcement. You don't need visible proof. You don't need applause. That's why these habits feel unsettling to people who equate spending with success. They remove the performance entirely. Let's go deeper. One of the most misunderstood traits is how comfortable these people are with being misjudged. They let others hink they're cheap. They let others underestimate them. They let the wrong conclusions sit in the room without correcting them, because correcting impressions requires caring about them, and caring about how you're perceived by strangers is often a sign that your position doesn't feel secure. People who have held wealth for generations were raised with a different priority system. Reputation mattered, but not surface reputation, only long-term reputation within a closed, trusted circle. They don't optimize for strangers, they optimize for legacy. This is why they don't chase trends. Trends require attention. Attention requires validation. Validation requires an audience, and an audience can turn on you. Instead, they prefer consistency. Same tailor, same vacation spot, same household routines. Not because they lack imagination, but because stability compounds. Every decision they don't have to revisit frees mental space for decisions that actually matter. That's another cue. U-eat habit that looks like laziness from the outside. They repeat what works. They don't reinvent their identity every few years. They don't upgrade their personality. They don't rebrand. Rebranding is for people trying to escape something. Old money refines. It doesn't replace. This is why their homes rarely look trendy. No ultra-modern kitchens that scream a specific year. No decor choices that immediately date themselves. Everything is neutral, durable, quietly elegant, because the goal isn't to impress guests today, it's to not regret choices 20 years from now. This mindset extends to how they shop. They hate urgency. Limited time offers don't excite them. Flash sales don't trigger them. They don't buy because something is about to disappear. Scarcity marketing works best on people who feel they must act now or miss out forever. Old money doesn't feel rushed. They assume there will always be another option, another opportunity, another solution. And when you really believe that, your spending slows down dramatically. You don't impulse buy, you don't panic purchase, you don't stockpile out of fear. You wait. Waiting is one of their strongest skills. They wait for the right object, the right timing, the right craftsman. Waiting filters out regret, and regret is expensive. Another habit that shocks people is how rarely they talk about money. Not in vague terms, not in complaints, not in celebration. Money conversations feel private to them, almost intimate. Discussing purchases publicly feels crude. Talking about prices feels unnecessary. That doesn't mean they're ignorant. They know exactly what things cost. They just don't outsource their sense of value to public reaction. Contrast that with people who constantly narrate their spending. This was so expensive. I treated myself. I shouldn't have bought this, but that narration is a request for permission. Old money doesn't ask permission. They also don't romanticize struggle. This is important. They don't glorify being broke, but happy. They don't virtue signal frugality. They don't turn restraint into an identity. Frugality isn't who they are, it's just a tool, which means they can turn it on or off as needed. That's another key difference. People who perform frugality are rigid. People who practice restraint are flexible. Old money can be extremely generous when it matters. They fund scholarships quietly. They help family members without announcements. They support causes without posting receipts. Their generosity isn't designed to build a brand. It's designed to solve problems. That's why you'll often see them refuse public credit. Recognition creates obligation. Obligation creates exposure. They prefer impact without visibility. Another misunderstood habit is how little they negotiate socially, but how firmly they negotiate structurally. They won't argue over dinner plans. They won't debate preferences endlessly. They won't haggle to assert dominance, but contracts, fees, terms, those are precise. Because social harmony matters, but systems must be correct. They separate emotional energy from financial clarity. That's why they can be warm and exact at the same time. People mistake this for contradiction. It isn't. It's compartmentalization. They don't confuse kindness with carelessness, and they don't confuse precision with cruelty. Another quiet habit: they rarely chase exclusive experiences. VIP access doesn't impress them. Private rooms don't excite them. They've learned that exclusivity is often artificial, manufactured to extract money from insecurity. True access doesn't need a label, and the more something advertises how exclusive it is, the less exclusive it usually is. They prefer places that don't need to announce themselves. The restaurant with no sign, the hotel without influencers, the tailor who doesn't have a website, signals that only insiders recognize. This ties into a deep R principle. They value discretion over display. Discretion keeps options open, display closes them. When you're visibly wealthy, you attract attention, not all of it good. Expectations rise, assumptions form, boundaries blur. Being underestimated is often safer, which is why they're comfortable appearing ordinary. Ordinariness is a shield, another behavior that looks cheap but isn't. They avoid upgrades unless there's a clear functional benefit. They don't upgrade phones yearly. They don't chase marginal improvements. A product must meaningfully outperform the old one to justify replacement. Small improvements don't move them. This mindset protects them from constant dissatisfaction, because modern marketing is designed to make what you have feel insufficient. Old money resists that pressure. They don't need the newest version to feel current. They don't need novelty to feel alive. This is why boredom doesn't scare them. They're not addicted to stimulation. They see and sit with repetition. Repetition builds mastery. Mastery builds confidence. Confidence removes the need for display. Another subtle habit: they plan for maintenance before purchasing anything, not just cost to buy, cost to keep. Can this be serviced? Can it be repaired? Will parts still exist in 10 years? Disposable items fail this test. That's why they avoid cheap things that are expensive to maintain. They'd rather pay more up front and less forever. Time horizon is everything. People with short time horizons spend loudly. People with long time horizons spend carefully. This also explains their relationship with debt. They're not allergic to it, but they're selective. Debt must produce leverage, not pressure. They don't borrow for image, they borrow for structure. Anything that creates psychological stress isn't worth the tax benefits. Peace of mind has a higher return than most investments. Another habit that confuses people, they repeat outfits frequently. Say, me coat, same shoes, same silhouettes. Not because they lack options, but because uniformity simplifies decision-making. They don't outsource identity to clothing. Clothes are for function, fit, and appropriateness, not signaling novelty. This is why their style looks timeless rather than trendy. Timelessness requires restraint. Trends require constant attention. Attention is expensive. Another deeply misunderstood behavior, they're slow to celebrate financial wins. No big announcements, no lifestyle inflation parties. Success is acknowledged privately. Why? Because celebration invites comparison. Comparison invites scrutiny. Scrutiny invites pressure. They don't need momentum from others to stay motivated. Their motivation is internal, tied to stewardship, not ego. This is why they're less reactive to economic cycles. Booms don't make them reckless. Downturns don't make them panic. They've seen cycles before. Perspective is inherited. And finally, here's the trut. Most people don't want to hear. Old money habits aren't about money. They're about emotional regulation, impulse control, delayed gratification, comfort with silence, tolerance for being misunderstood. These traits look like frugality on the surface, but underneath there's signs of stability. Stability doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't rush, it doesn't shout, it doesn't beg to be seen. It just persists. So when someone calls these habits cheap, what they're really reacting to is the absence of performance. No spectacle, no reassurance, no validation loop. And that absence can feel threatening. Because if wealth doesn't scream, then maybe screaming was never wealth at all. Maybe it was insecurity with a budget. And maybe the quietest people in the room aren't trying to prove anything, because they already know exactly where they stand. That's the real signal, not what's spent, not what's shown, but what never needs explaining.